What episode is this, Greg?
Episode 40.
Big 4-0.
Big 40.
Lordy. Look who's 40.
I'm glad you said it. I was going to say it.
Were you going to say it?
Yeah.
They still have those billboards every once in a while. You'll come across one. And it's like the picture of the person whose birthday it is and like black balloons, like they're dead.
I remember my mom's, because my grandpa got this pretty good troll in. He had a box in this bird feeder that was in the front yard that said, Lordy, Mary's 40. My mom's name was Mary. But it was like full of like bricks. So it was like super heavy to like make you feel even older. He was good like at trolling and shit like that.
Episode 40, and it's our 2022 wrap up.
Yeah. Couple days into 2023.
Yeah.
For me, this was probably the longest year of my life. I genuinely like think back of like what I was doing a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm like not even that person.
I think
same.
That might just be psychological because I think it was probably still 365 days.
No, I counted. It was something like 7,000 days.
Yeah.
I could be off here or there.
Yeah. This one, there was a lot of like upside, but there was a hell of a lot of challenges. Never been sick that many times in my life. Like, goddamn, especially December was kind of a brutal tour de force. Some good high notes, like, but man, fucking brutal year.
Mine's a blur. It really is. I feel like this did go by pretty quickly for me. As far as music shit goes, it was a very, I want to say, productive year. It was a year of growth.
Same here.
Felt a lot of inspiration this year to work on shit and not just buy and sell modules. Right. Cycle them through my rack.
Yeah.
Which I did my fair share of for sure. But
we both did.
Yeah. But I feel like by the end of the year now, I've reached a good balance and I'm being very productive with what I'm trying to do in the studio. So
yeah.
Wasn't all for naught.
Yeah, I realized as I was kind of reviewing today, like some of the changes in the past year, I was like, wow, you changed a lot of shit and cycled it out. Went back to like where I was a little bit before. And I'm not mad at any of it. They were all pretty good choices, but I don't think it's going to be this volatile next year for me. That's like one of my personal predictions I'll make.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy with the shit I have, and like money's got to go elsewhere. I need like new stoves. There's tons of shit that I should get instead of like another sampler or something like that.
Yeah, I started to have that same revelation a few months back, and my purchases definitely started to go down. And yeah, it's going to be even more of that in 2023, I think.
Same.
I'm going to have to sink some money into house stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. And to be honest, there's just not a whole lot that's inspiring me to open my wallet right now.
Same here.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and the things that I do want are either too damn expensive or too hard to get a lot of times lately. Yeah. So that actually ties in with our prediction from last year. Around this time when we did our wrap-up episode.
Did you go back and listen to it? And
I listened to parts, yeah.
Okay.
And it was still kind of fresh in my head, too, because the things that we were talking about, we've talked about a couple times throughout the year also.
Mm-hmm. Hybrid systems.
Yeah. Year of the hybrid was our big prediction. And we're talking about how some manufacturers would probably go under, some big ones, and they did. We were talking about how things would become hard to get and expensive, and that's exactly what has been happening. And we touched on all that again in our modular dystopia episode not that long ago. So I guess we don't need to beat that point into the ground or anything, but there's definitely nothing on the horizon that suggests that's going to change anytime soon for 2023. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot more of that.
I don't want to make this prediction, but I think it'll get worse again. I think a lot of people are going to shift doing this part-time. Hope that's not the case, but I don't see that letting up.
Yeah.
So I've got a twist on this. One of my predictions was, and this is only because of watching them on Instagram and getting like their emails and basically watching them sort of struggle for a while. And then this seems to be like right now on the cusp of them solving all the problems they've been having for a couple of years now and finally delivering. And that's LZX.
Truth.
They ended the one line, then that became unobtainium. And then like a couple of the new things actually made it out. A lot of stuff that was supposed to come out a little while ago, but then there were struggles for various reasons. Basically, the new lineup looks like it's on the cusp of coming out.
Yeah.
Secondary market for LZX stuff is astronomical now.
Yeah.
It's really out of control. And this will hopefully ease that by having the TBC2 coming out, Chromalodeon,
Cro-Magnon.
Thank you, Chromalodeon. Wow.
Yeah, isn't that some band?
It is a band from Philly in the early 2000s. Definitely not what I meant. They were good. They were good. I mean, if they're listening,
I think that's what you meant.
That's what I meant. So to me, like that's the one bright spot in all of this is a company that's stuck with it, and is on the cusp of putting all this stuff into this market and making modular video synthesis at least a little feasible again.
Yeah, like if you pre-ordered a Cro-Magnon, you've probably been waiting 2 years for one now. If you've still hung in there, they had to make a new line of modules so they could keep the company floating while they were waiting to produce TBC2 and Cro-Magnon and the new line of shit. But it sounds like they're about to ship TBC2, which is huge. And they're saying Cro-Magnon is going to be like spring finally, which is also big for them.
I'm very excited about TBC2 because I pre-ordered that like well over a year ago. It's really a very fundamentally important part of the system that is going to make this a viable option for a lot of people that have been interested in video synth stuff, but have been keeping it in the box just because that was really the only alternative. So, so I'm putting a twist on this doom and gloom and saying there's at least a sparkle of hope on the video synth front.
Yeah. People are getting creative. Like, Russ, we always usually mention Russ in episodes, and Russ has some new plans to be able to produce some stuff, has shifted his strategy a little bit. Seems interesting. So hopefully people will keep being creative, making shit. But
I mean, we should have Russ on sometime. I know we've said that in the past. But talking about the designs that he has and what he wants to do, and also like the struggles that he's gone through keeping his line afloat. I don't know.
That's just kind of sparked an idea for me. And we could do like some episodes where it's like SysEx, Dumpster, and Friends, and we could have maybe more than one person on to like kind of spread it out a little,
like Crossfire.
Yeah.
Like where we get like a Republican and a Democrat on, and like we're the moderators, but they're like fighting and like it gets like heated and they're throwing shoes at each other.
I'm sold.
Yeah. I don't know how to figure out who's going to be the most like likely to start a fight, but we'll figure it out. We'll have a questionnaire.
It'll become apparent.
Yeah. I like that idea though. Yeah.
We'll see where the year takes us.
Patreons, let us know what you think of this idea.
Yeah, because I know you've mentioned this before and have kind of slowed a little more before Greg and I, but I'm also in the position where I don't think I'm going to have like a ton of new things to review next year. So I'm kind of thinking about like, but I don't know. I've picked up some things that are like, again, like I got another Ornament in Crime. I'm using it differently, and like some like random kits and like stuff like that. So I might have some other shit to talk about.
With the gnarled horse throat tape done and out, and my 10-inch done and out, I've got a clean slate right now. One of my personal predictions is very similar, maybe not getting a lot of new stuff, but like trying new techniques, new things.
Yeah.
Taking the stuff that I have and being like, all right, don't just patch this like you normally do, because there's a couple of routes that I go because I know they work. Don't do that. Do something different. Like when I feel myself kind of going down the same path or the well that I go to all the time, maybe stop and try something different.
It's like Mick Gordon said, change the process and you change the outcome.
Maybe I'll make music that people actually want to hear that way.
But like a new old thing for me, like I used to kind of hate these because I always had Behringer ones, but I just got a patch bay again recently because I got this Octatrack, and to follow up on that last week, yeah, the Octatrack's pretty crucial for me now. It's not leaving. It just does its live set thing, and that's it. But I have it set up at home, and I'm like, oh, I can't really use this as well. And like I have these hardware effects. I'm not using my mixer anymore, and I needed to like be able to patch effects. And so I saw Black Lion Audio makes like patch bays now, and I'm like, oh, like they'll probably do a good job of it. The Behringer ones I had were those like card ones, and I always had like connection issues, and I was like for a long time like fuck patch bays. I don't want to deal with noise issues. Make it simple. But I got this one, and I'm actually gonna, on the drive home, I will pick up the patch cables that I needed for it, like balanced patch cables. But I'm pretty excited to like integrate that in again. Like it's been spurring some new ideas in my mind. So.
I had a patch bay for a really long time, but it was the noise and the crinkling and just...
That's what kills me.
It was another one that had the cards, which were really configurable. I like that aspect of it. But I was like, I'd rather just have one that does have like no bells and whistles. This is a very simple device.
Yeah.
Make it as simple as possible, but make it absolutely fucking perfect.
I think that's this Black Lion audio one, which was like $200, which is a pretty fair price. Like if you're gonna pay that for like Furman patch banks or like the 150 or something like that. But it just has a button on the back to switch from normal and half normal, and it's like, oh, okay, this is way better. All the like leads are like gold plated. It's like, oh, this is built like really well. I bet it will not sound like shit, because the Behringer ones, they were a pain in the ass for me. I hated them.
I have a patch base sitting in my closet that I've never even
Oh yeah,
used.
is it a Behringer one?
No, it's either the Furman or a Samson.
Did you get that Samson for me?
No, I got it
Okay.
from Sweetwater, I think, and then I got monthly calls asking about how I like my patch bay, and I'm like, bro, I haven't even patched it up. Like I had it when I had more outboard effects.
Yeah.
Now I don't. Like most of my effects are modular based, so it's like I haven't needed the patch bay, but I should probably sell it, honestly.
Yeah, because I was talking about it a couple months back, and then I was talking to Russ about it somehow. And Russ is like, oh yeah, patch bays are great. He's like, mine just kind of makes like it's a noise sometimes. And I was immediately like, fuck those things. But past couple weeks, I was like, oh, let me try this again.
So I mean, I guess this could segue into we've got a bunch of categories for best of or most of, and I wanted to thank our Patreons, especially in a last minute request over the last day or two, giving us some suggestions for categories for us to review or talk about. This probably isn't the most exciting one to start with. I feel like this is a segue. We're talking about old and new. Someone asked for the best resurrection of an old piece of gear. And I wanted to point out, for me, the DSi Evolver is heavily back in the mix.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you were just kind of growing out of love with that thing recently. Now you're back in.
Absolutely.
Rebound.
It was like dusty. Like it was seriously like kind of out of the way and hadn't been used in a while.
Same one I sold you, right?
It is the
like
one from like
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm playing a live set in a couple of weeks, and the Deluge has CV out, but also MIDI out, and they're separate channels. And also, I was like, man, it'd be nice if in addition to just having the small modular setup, I had like a nice little sound module. And I started looking around. I was like, that's cool, but the Evolver did that better. Oh, that one's nice, but I like the way they did that in the Evolver better. And I brought it back out, and like even some of like the old patches like I had saved, I'm like, oh, this still sounds good.
Hell yeah.
So I don't really remember why I fell out of love with it. I'll eventually figure out what it was why we would keep breaking up. But as of right now, yeah, very excited to dust that off, bring it back into the mix.
I was looking at those kind of recently, actually.
There was someone who posted the mono key version on Muffs just the other day, and I was like, fuck, that was like my dream synth for years.
Luke used to have one.
Really?
Yeah.
I always wanted one. And they were like so hard to find. And seeing that pop up, I was like, I really don't need that, but I fucking want it. Like,
that's the one to get, kind of.
Yeah,
the knobs, it's just like,
it's got everything laid out. Like that was my biggest issue with the Evolver and why I sold it in first, but I didn't like the little grid matrix setup on the little module version. You know, sounded great. I loved the sound of it. I just didn't like the interface.
Yeah,
the keyboard version seems to solve a lot of that.
Yeah, so much is surfaced on that. Yeah, so that was getting the ball rolling.
Yeah,
that's my best resurrection. We don't have to stick on this category. I just wanted to. It seemed like we were talking about old things, so.
I'll go next, I guess. I'm like knee deep back into Propellerhead's Reason again. Wow. Yeah, I'm opening it. I'm just using the Reason rack version of it, which is really all I'm interested in, because I don't like the DAW aspects that they've added to Reason over the years. It kind of ruined the program for me. I like the fact now that you can open it as a VST and it's just like the rack. So I've been using it like multiple instances of it within VCV rack, and then routing my Reason patches through VCV out my Expert Sleepers ES9 into my modular for like further processing. And it's just weird to me because Reason, especially like Rebirth and things like that, like those were my first tools that I started playing with back in like 2000.
Definitely, same.
It's weird to be back in Reason and not much is changed, you know what I mean? Like there's some new instruments, but it's like felt like riding a bike to me. Like I used to spend hours upon fucking hours in Reason. So like getting back in there and feeling comfortable with it and like actually being productive with it, I was like, it's kind of strange that I've gone full circle in some degrees with it, because like I hadn't touched it in years, you know?
I can't even imagine too, because like similar, like me at the time having no idea what to do. Like this was entirely like the alchemy of twisting knobs and seeing what happened, and the idea of like actually having a intent versus just twisting knobs and seeing what happened.
Yeah. I mean, like my experiences with Reason is what led me to like the modular path in the first place, and the only reason why I understood how to work on certain synths. You know what I mean? Because it was like, you know, you had that familiarity with the hardware-based interface of Reason stuff, and you know, mixing consoles and all that shit. So like, yeah, diving back into that now with even more knowledge, you know, it's interesting. But for the most part, it's still just me fucking around in there. Like it's the new stuff that they've added to it very recently. It's I guess was oddly timed. Like I wanted to start getting back into it, and at the same time, they've released like some really interesting shit for it, like the algorithm synth, which is just like it's a modular FM synth. You can add modules to it. There's wavetable modules, filters. It has like generative functions and like all this shit. Something that Reason should have had a long time ago.
Sure.
You know? I'm glad to finally see that they're innovating with it a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, dipping back into time and playing with software that I, you know, was very into 20 years ago, and now in a modern context that would be my resurrection. I guess.
Nice. It's a good one.
For me, not a surprise, but Octatrack Mark II. Especially after the last review, like I've got the levels kind of dialed in now. Like it sounds good. It was just, I couldn't have done that last live set in the same way without it. And that was the live set since I've started that I felt the best about while playing it and after. And it's just perfect for live. I don't do anything crazy with the Octatrack. I don't even really give too much of a shit about sampling anymore. But as far as its ability to loop and affect two pieces of equipment in live, like it was so much fun because of the Octatrack, and I was able to like do so much more. All that muscle memory was there. Looping was seamless and worked perfectly live. It was just like fucking sick. So I won't sell that again as long as I'm playing like live sets basically. And I don't plan to stop, because I was even the one for Andy Stott, I wasn't like super psyched on that live set. I thought it was like kind of a C-grade effort. I didn't represent myself very well, but that last one at Collision, like got it. Like that like was the most fun I've ever had playing live.
Well, as someone who saw both of them, they were both great.
Oh,
Yeah, I dug them both.
But yeah, that's my resurrection.
All
So
right.
what about one of the next ones I think is favorite sound source?
So I'll start.
Yeah, start Dave.
I'm gonna start this up. So for me in 2022, it was the Buchla 258T, or the Tip Top 258T Buchla oscillator.
Killer.
I was interested in it. We talked about it. You know, some of the stuff we talked about in the past, so we don't have to deep dive too much into it. I was interested in it. I was like, let me give this a shot. Absolutely love it. I think they nailed it. I think it's more interesting than it has any right to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, two enthusiastic stereo output thumbs up.
Stereo?
Well,
Yeah,
it has two. It's
two
like
outputs.
multi. It's
Yeah.
not like actual stereo, but those mults are brilliant that it lends itself to like a lot of different patching opportunities. Highly, especially for the price, it's like one of the best oscillators out there. Analog for sure. It's just fucking incredible.
Greg, your look. What is this look you're giving us?
Because my answer is kind of not as sexy, and it's an answer I'm probably going to give in multiple categories, but mutable plates. With the orange mode.
So that was the thing, is I didn't put that in this category because it's going to show up in another category, and I didn't want to just say Platts over and over again.
I'm going to be saying Platts over and over.
All right, that's fair.
Plates, Platts.
I think it's Platts.
Platts, plates. Yeah, I'm in love with that orange mode.
Oh, same here. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's. I know it's squeezing it in at the end of the year. That was a nice like end of year surprise. But like I can tell you right now, I've enjoyed playing with that way more than like any other oscillator that I have throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like most of my oscillator experiments this year were software based, and they're all kind of boring. And that was mainly intentional. I spent the year avoiding complex oscillators. I was trying to do more with simple sources.
Yeah.
I was trying to focus more on the processing and stuff. And I feel like plates has always been a good Swiss Army knife of simple, you know, not super simple, but like, you know, simpler Swiss Army knife oscillator stuff, you know, duties. And now the orange mode just breathes like a whole new type of vibe into it that I'm really digging. All the FM stuff.
Yeah, the FM is especially incredible on that.
So the timing of it was perfect because, again, I've like sort of finished a bunch of things and was like with an eye towards performing live again. And Platts is in my live setup, so that's opening up it as a synth source. But also, I was like, I always want more Gabber kicks. I always want to make more Gabber kicks. That plus Grit plus Filter of Crows was like 2 weekends in a row. Just all I did over and over again was just make Gabber kicks.
Yeah.
Over and over again. It was going from several 100,000 Gabber kicks to 2 million Gabber kicks. It was yeah.
I had a second runner up.
Oh.
Also. I got to give the Modbap Trinity some love. It's probably my favorite drum module I've played with in quite a minute.
Damn, I was wondering how you were getting along with it.
I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Very versatile. The only major complaint I have with it so far is that like you have 3 drums, but you're sharing the same knobs. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've already accidentally not clicked the correct drum sound and started messing with knobs, and then messed up what I had going on like the kick while trying to fine tune like the snare. Yeah. I don't see how they could easily get around it, you know what I mean? Because it's like a lot of stuff crammed into a decently small size module, you know? Like, to have each drum its own knobs, it would be a huge module. So I understand why they didn't go that route, but it does make it a bit tricky. But sound-wise, yeah, I'm loving it so far. So yeah, shout out in second place for Trinity.
Mine's a 2-parter, and I actually had 4 things to start with because I got some sound sources I really like. But there's a non-modular and modular, and I went big and got the most expensive piece of music equipment I've ever got, and got the Oberheim OB6 desktop, which is
a beast.
Dude, it's like when I sat down to use it, I was like, oh, this is what an extremely good quality synthesizer sounds like. And it's just like designed well, and it gave me like, I was looking at evolvers because it like got me back. I'm like, I've been ignoring like Dave Smith and sequential stuff because it's like the way the filter works with the envelopes and the way the oscillators sound. It's like the perfect complement to the Virus Tie, and you can like turn the res up all the way on the filter, and it will never break up at all. It's just like gold in filter, and like CVing the mode or like modulating the mode of the filter and being able to sweep through that.
Yeah,
it's like. It's one of those things where I will be patching it and I will be fucking yelling. Like I'm just like screaming in the house like, holy shit. So that was like well worth it.
Yeah. I'm jealous.
Oh dude, it's like if you like, I convinced Luke to get one surprise, but it's like one of those things, if you like synthesizers and you sit down and you don't like it, well, if you sit down and don't like it, you don't like synthesizers probably. Like it's just kind of undeniably good. And it's very classic, and you can make like John Carpenter fucking sounds all day kind of, or like what to me in my ear is close enough to like a Prophet 5. But they killed it too, and like it's just perfectly nice to use. It didn't like getting ripped off on the first one, which was on Amazon. And it turned out, and I didn't even realize this, Luke was the one who was like, oh shit, here's one for like $1,900. I'm like, that's like $600 off. And I'm like, ooh, it's on Prime. Like, I'm going to buy this. And it was like super late at night. I realized the next morning the seller is from the Ukraine. And I was like, not like sketched by that, but I'm like, okay, they've got some sales. And then I got really worried like a couple hours after when they shut their entire store down and all the products were gone.
Okay.
And I was like, ooh.
So it was a scam.
It was absolutely a scam. And I was trying to contact the person and they were like trolling me basically. And then I was like, ooh, fuck.
What the fuck?
And then the next day I saw like 6 other feedbacks. Everybody got scammed. And I think I was the end of the scam because I was like the last high dollar thing. And they were like, ooh, gonna shut it down now.
How the hell does shit like that get onto Amazon?
It's
like
the nice thing is like good thing to know. If you do that for anything under $2,500, Amazon will cover you. Within a week, I pretty much had my money back. But you've got to wait to like prove like, oh, they could still ship it. And I'm like, dude, they're like, they shut their store down. Like they're gone. So that worked out, and I ended up like a couple days through that, I was like, oh, Sweetwater, like I'm gonna make my rep happy because I just like paid full price and got one, and I was like, okay, that was 1,000% worth it. It was expensive, but holy shit, like that's a lifer. It was like $2,500.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I got it on sale for a little bit. Then after tax, it's like kind of the same amount.
Yeah.
So I sold my sound devices, Mix Pre 6. I sold my ADAT expander to Luke. I sold a couple modules, like my squid sample's gone now too. And those pretty much got close enough to covering it, like within $500.
Nice.
So I do kind of miss those, even though the squid, like to touch on it quickly, it's like I don't do much with sampling anymore, and I've realized that's kind of gone for me. I'll use the Octatrack or like even the ER301. I might sell that because I just like I have another project I might use it for, which is a separate thing. But yeah, I will miss the sound devices Mix Pre, even though I don't do field recordings. It's like so good to like do Instagram videos that sound perfect, and it was just nice, but I didn't need that thing. I don't need to use 6-track recording remotely. I would probably just get that Zoom H6 if I wanted something else again. It's more than good enough.
That reminds me, not to deviate, but like the seasonal affective disorder has been like rocking my ass the last few weeks, and I was trying to think of like how to break out of that. And one way I used to do that was like road trips, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I'm trying not to spend money or anything too much right now, and I was trying to think of like what would be a good, you know, what would inspire a nice road trip and not cost a lot of money. And then I was like, oh yeah, I haven't done field recording in a hot minute. And I was like going to ask you guys if the weather is permitting any time in the next few weeks, would anyone want to go to like a couple spots and do some like field recordings?
Is there any chance that I was going to say no to that? Like, of course.
Yeah.
Right on. Cool. Yeah, I'd be very much into it.
Yeah, I'm 100% into that. That sounds awesome.
Because I would, the album that I'm working on, there's been multiple times where I'm like, I would really like some like field recorded ambience in the background here. And I was like, but I don't have any fresh recordings, and I want to dig through my old shit. Like I want to do something fresh. And I was like, yeah, I should probably get my ass to a couple abandoned places soon, or a couple factories, and start recording some sounds.
Awesome idea.
Yeah. And I'll even mention that's enough of a review, but the modular one was Deckard's voice, which I still haven't given a proper review of yet, but it's like similar level of like, ooh, this is what it's like when somebody designs something really fucking well. And it's
you're
just
hitting
like
some high end stuff, man.
Dude, it was, both of those were really worth it.
Yeah.
Both pricey. No, very little actually. Yeah. Even though the OB6 is good at mono stuff, it's like surprisingly good at just like First, I was like, this is going to be great for chords. And then I realized, like, God damn, it's a bass monster.
Really?
Like, absolutely destructo bass. Not more like John Carpenter, like analog, like that really just fucking deep analog bass sound. It like owns that sound.
Nice.
So it does sound like you're going to have some things to talk about in the future.
Both of those I need to put a little more time in. And all I've been doing for the past couple of weeks is if I have time is I'll just sit down and play the Oberheim. It's one of those where I can... Very kind of rare for me to be able to just sit down and like just enjoy playing a synth by itself. And it's one of those. You can just kind of get lost patching it for a minute.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Both of those rule. I couldn't recommend either of those more. I know they're pricey, but those are two things where it's like, okay,
worth
the
dollar.
money. Yeah. Like that and a virus and an analog rhythm. See ya. I could work forever with those three and not give a fuck, really.
I've been going like the total opposite route. I've been trying to like use filters as oscillators, tuning my feedback and shit as a sound source. I'm just trying to like keep it super simple and like just bare essential for sound sources right now. But I do miss playing with like, you know, like you talking about that the other day and the virus and stuff like that. I was like, man, I do miss playing on my virus. You know what I mean? Just getting lost in that world for a bit.
That live set rejuvenated that for me pretty well. No, I'm like very into the virus again. Yeah, that and the OB6 complement each other perfectly in a mix. It can kind of freak me out how good they sound together.
Well, speaking of filters, one of the categories was best filter.
Yeah, I wrote down for that same one or effect.
Okay.
Didn't have to limit it to filter, but like processor.
It's not going to be Platts again, is it?
No.
All right.
I'll start. I already know what mine's pick's going to be.
So I'll start because I don't actually know if anyone knows what mine's going to be. For me, 2022 filter of crows.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got it, and I think I was pretty positive in my initial review earlier this year.
You almost convinced me to get one.
Oh, really?
But I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
We were all close.
It can do everything. It can be a nice, simple, basic filter. It can be just used as a preamp, just the Crow part of it. The mixture of modes is fantastic. Turning off the resonance stability is a completely separate noise source now. Like it just does absolutely bonkers stuff, and the cutoff and resonance being CV-able, just sequencing the chaos of that is just like the separate other bonus device you get. So yeah, I got a Grit a couple months ago after we talked about it, and I love it. But A, that's from 2021, and B, I love it. But Filter of Crows, like if I gun to my head, I probably would pick Filter of Crows over. I'm gonna keep them both. I think they're great.
Our guidelines are loose as usual.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be made in 2022, just something that you got or discovered in 2022.
I mean, my runner-up would be Grit. But again, if I could only pick one, Filter of Crows, they absolutely fucking nailed it.
Did you mention who that's by?
Oh, I did not mention who that's by. It's by Pittsburgh Modular.
There you
Yes,
go.
it is.
So yeah, that's my 1 and 2 for best filter of the year. Craig,
take a guess what my first is.
Grit.
I'm thinking it's Grit.
You're correct.
Right. Oh, so that's why you were very keen on making sure that we established the rules that it didn't have to be in 2021 because you were about to violate it within minutes.
Grit has been a fucking game changer for me.
Yeah,
it's like the filter that I've always wanted to exist in Eurorack. And things have come close, like stacking Plague Bearers and things like that. Grit just fucking nails the type of saturation that I like to get out of my filters. I love the sound of the resonance. I love the limiter on the input that I can slam or ease back. The only thing that it lacks that I wish it had was bandpass mode. But I'll survive.
Right.
But yeah, I love Grit. I'm considering getting a second one. It's amazing. And I hope that British noise electronics doesn't go under. Like we talked about last time. Yeah, their website is still down. Still no news about the future of the company. Haven't seen any restocks.
They've trickled some out because you can get more at where we got it from now. They have
the
like
Grit?
8 again or something like that.
I did notice there was a couple up for sale. That's the only module I've seen up for sale though. Everything else seems to be sold out everywhere, and the price gouging is fucking insane on Reverb right now.
It's unreal.
But that's my first pick. Second pick, Chase Bliss Generation Loss Mark II pedal.
Yeah.
Loving it. Absolutely loving it.
I think a few people have either purchased that pedal or want to because of your review.
I'm glad. I think it deserves the attention, Like I really enjoyed the last iteration of it, and this one I feel like they really knocked out of the park. I've seen recently some people complaining about latency on it. And they just released 2 updates. One is a firmware update that can help reduce that latency. They said if you feel like it's an issue, it does slightly alter the sound of it. It gives it more of a flange effect on tight settings as opposed to like a chorusy effect. Me personally, I like the chorus sound.
Sure.
So I haven't updated. And then they also released a hardware update that requires some soldering.
Really?
Which and they offer it free, and they said like if you want to send them the pedal, they'll do it for you type of thing, because they don't want people breaking their pedals. But it's supposed to help with the bass response come through at like no high pass whatsoever. By default, there's a bit of a high pass that goes on with it. Me personally, I don't mind it. I don't expect everything to go through gracefully when I send sound into that pedal.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Especially bass. In fact, I kind of like the fact that it will thin things out at times. I don't need a high bass response with it, so I'm probably not going to bother with the update. But yeah, loving it still. I think they smashed it. I'm curious to see what else they developed that will be in stereo and have CV capability like this one does.
Well, big shock. My number 1 pick for the year. British Noise Electronics Grid.
Hell yeah.
Thank you very much again for looking at me and being like, you should get that filter, because I did. And it's one of the best filters ever. Incredibly unique sound. Lots of stuff that, like you said, I've been kind of wanting out of a filter, but kind of struggling to get or having to do a lot of workarounds. And it just sounds, it's the shit. Build quality is excellent. I've been loving it for a variety of things. Just sounds good.
It sounds good, and it sounds like it's just not holding back.
Nah.
You know what I mean? Like some filters, like you can just tell, like they're pushing your audio in a very specific way. This is just kind of like it's like a tiny sandbox of potential. You know what I mean? Like if you want clean and squelchy, you can do that. If you want it fucking shredded and like saturated and the resonance just breaking apart, at the seams, you can do that too. It's like I like that. I've noticed even like the CV ranges on the inputs are like massive. Like they go beyond normal range.
Yeah.
It's like kind of cool. I like that.
And my second pick, kind of runner up, would be the Surge variable bandwidth filter, which is a weird one. You can't even get a DIY version of it. Most of my random source Surge stuff I've built. It doesn't even have resonance. It just has, that variable bandwidth control, which gets to be very resonance-like sounds. It kind of like squeezes the sound in this really interesting way. I didn't even really know about that filter topology. Or I saw that originally. I was like, no resonance. I don't give a shit because it's a filter and I want resonance. Well, I was at the No Way Back party in May and seeing Outer Space play live. My friend John and his friend. And the last track was just making these sounds that were like almost these like phaser sounds. And it was blowing my mind at the time. And I even talked to John a little after the set. And I'm like, dude, what was that last track? And he was like, oh, this is just like, we're processing a bunch of the shit with like the banana version of like Surge variable bandwidth filter. He's like, that's the coolest fucking filter in the world. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like that's, your opinion carries a little weight. Like I'm going to check that. I think I ordered it like the next day or something. I was like, oh, I want to fucking try this. And it made me realize, I think, emu samplers and like drum and bass and how they were used for that. Like one of the things that they had was like the variable bandwidth EQ. And I think a lot of those similar, because I noticed myself getting sounds. I'm like, ooh, that sounds like the tech step sound I could never quite like make as easily as I could, or I had to use like multiple filters to make a variable bandwidth filter basically. And that was another eye opener. It's not something I use all the time, but there's a really cool thing it can do. And I like kind of exploring that flavor. Very unique. Not many things can do it. That Satonics macro pod can do it too. And it has resonance, but I find the Surge to be a little cleaner, a little more surgical. And for that, I kind of like that effect. So yeah, a good solid runner up to the Grit, but the Grit definitely favorite one from the year.
Nice.
Very nice. All right. Well, one of the other ones was firmware update of the year. Mine's Platts.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it. I didn't know if anyone had
orange mode all day,
fucking day.
Most of this was an opportunity for anyone to say a second place if they had one.
I love to. I will say about the Platts orange mode. You can't update Behringer Brains with the new firmware. There's a hardware difference that prevents that from happening, and I just fucking love that. Because if you bought that module, you're kind of a fucking moron. I'm sorry. Especially when you can get a clone of the actual Platts.
So many better options out there for clones. Yeah,
for a little display, you don't need it all.
So, disappointments.
Disappointments and flops.
Disappointment / flop.
Yeah.
I'll start again.
Yeah.
So I have something for this category, but I feel like disappointment isn't actually the right word for me, because I went in
utter disgust.
No, that's a separate category altogether, and I reserve for myself. This was like, I'm interested in this, and I hope it's better than I think it's going to be, and it turned out to basically be as bland as I thought it was going to be. So it's disappointment in the sense that I got rid of it. I didn't like it, and it was a very hyped piece of kit. For me, Nautilus. I don't get it. I think it's a flop. I think it's boring. I covered it in detail, and I even kept it for a little bit while after that and was like, let me just double check before I get rid of this. Honestly, it's kind of just overpriced garbage. I don't like it. If this is your bag, if this is what you're into, I hope you're not offended. But it is like not even remotely for me. So that Nautilus is the not quite disappointment because I didn't have high hopes, but even the modicum of hope I had was dashed.
Yeah.
I may not be 100% on board with where Qubit's at.
I kind of lean that way too.
Yeah.
I like the Aurora. I have the Cord V2.
Mm-hmm.
The Cord V2 I could probably do without. The Aurora is still cool. I'm still liking that.
So, Greg, what is your disappointment / flop?
Polyan Play.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah. I bought into the marketing hype, and I shouldn't have. I knew better. I should have trusted my gut.
Yeah. And you gave it a decent amount of time.
I did. I gave it a fair shake.
Yeah.
Because, there's potential there.
Mm.
You know, I don't want to call it a complete flop, but yeah, it did not do what I wanted a machine to do, really. It's just too dumbed down, too restrictive. The whole like being limited to 16 steps and the whole thing that they're really pushing for, at least all the influencers and such were pushing about it, was like it's generative functions, but like really you're just juggling presets.
Right.
Like it's not really doing much that I would call generative, and you're working within the confines of what they deem to be a kick or a snare or a hat pattern. And, I don't know. I just found it kind of more limiting and restrictive than liberating. I found the Polyan tracker to be more inviting for generative stuff, personally.
I could see that.
And it feels like it's almost like they neutered it intentionally so that there wasn't much spillover between like the Play and the tracker.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because this thing had the potential to be like Tracker 2.0.
Right.
And just have like a nicer, interface to the tracker and new features and things. But no, they went a different route. They kept it two separate products, and neither are really cheap at this point.
Right.
The price of the tracker has gone up over the last couple of years. The Play retails for like $900 if I recall.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, $900 for a 16-step preset machine was just not what I was looking for.
And I still have my tracker. I still use it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's my go-to. I still use Deluge and LXR way more than that. But for when I go and need that, I think the tracker nailed it. So I think they know how to make a good product.
Yeah. I think they're like Electron, where it's like, you guys need to get out of your own fucking way and stop trying to worry about like having these products that are discrete and don't overlap with each other, and just make the best thing you fucking can.
Yeah. That and no stereo sampling,
Yeah.
So weird.
Well, there's no sampling on it at all. It's you can't sample into it or record, but like the samples that you do load into it, same as the tracker, it has to be mono.
Right.
It's restricted with the size and the track length and all that. It's like, I don't know.
And as someone with a tracker, if they made the Play what you described, this Tracker 2.0 and all these new, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be like, oh fuck this tracker. It still is. It's
the tracker's a modern classic.
Yeah,
I think there will
so.
forever be a following around that product. And if
But
they come up with a new version, there's still going to be people that are probably very religious about 1.0.
Right.
Yeah.
I would not have been mad if there was a 2.0, a new version, and it had all this other stuff. I would be like, I'm still getting a ton of shit out of the tracker. There's just now two options.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that people are going to get mad because there had been an update and it had too much overlap, I think that's a faulty premise.
So much wasted potential.
Yeah.
Agreed. If they would have just done a few slight changes, I would still have a Play sitting on my desk for sure.
Right.
But, who knows? Maybe someday with Tracker 2.0, I'll get what I want out of something like that.
And for me, it would be the Oxy One sequencer, actually. I'd thought about this for a while. The Erica Black sequencer was another fail for me, but that was one I kind of like, it's an older one. The Oxy One was one that I had a lot of hope for. And I know that there are people that love it. It's not like it's some fundamentally flawed thing, but I think the way that it doesn't really have screens, and getting the Hapax, like I'm a Squart bitch for the most part. I think the way that they have their stuff simple and the way that they manage screens and everything, like the Hapax is like just I can't imagine using another sequencer for like the type of melodic stuff that it does. It's just such a joy to use live and so easy. And I thought with the Oxy One, like it was always just kind of not a great user interface. It's hard for me to navigate, hard to know what I needed to do, way too many like hotkeys to like save and shit like that. When it's like, oh, you could have just made like a bigger device kind of, and had like more options in my mind. But I think it's great that they did it and they keep updating it. They've made all these updates, but I don't miss that in any capacity. I think the Scorp is far superior for my needs.
Nice.
Yeah. We weren't too harsh. I mean, as far as like a category about disappointments, I feel, I mean, I guess I did call something garbage, but outside of that, I think that wasn't too harsh.
Yeah.
I'm more or less disappointed in myself too when it comes to the play for falling into that marketing hype,
Yeah.
like, dude, influencers are pushing that so fucking hard. Like,
so wait, before we get into this, isn't there a category related to this?
There is. I guess
do we want to segue?
Yeah, let's do it.
The category. Well, as suggested by some of our Patreons, they wanted to hear what we considered the hackiest hack of the year when it comes to like influencers and reviewers, and also worst influencer trend of 2022. So we could probably tie those together. But yeah, I don't want to name drop anyone, that I consider to be like the hackiest hack.
Yeah.
But describe them to the point where it can only be one person and we know who you're talking about.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't have one name in mind. Like,
me neither.
We were talking about this just the other day, the three of us, offline or whatever. And it seemed like 2022, especially over the last few months, has been like a horrible fucking year for people shilling for products and companies. Like, and I can't even really blame them. Like, obviously, the market's crazy right now. Things are hard to get. Things are expensive. People aren't spending as much. So companies are throwing products at reviewers and influencers with some pretty high stipulations that, they need to get the fucking hype train rolling.
But with buyers having like, fewer choices and basically only getting a couple of things, they're trying to make sure that their product is the one that they're buying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is not that different than any other year in the history of capitalism, but it does seem like it's a little bit more pointed now.
It seemed very excessive, especially like when you're subscribed to multiple people on YouTube and you realize like they all released a video on the same product at the same minute and they're all saying the same fucking shit like it's a script. It's like, okay. And the Polyand play was a big one for that. Like I can't even recall a product that I've seen get pushed so hard by so many different influencers and reviewers at the same time.
Very coordinated effort. And I'll give some props to Red Means Recording, Jeremy Blake, for kind of like, I think, finally piercing through the veil of some of that nonsense. Because he said the same thing. He's like, oh, I'm like, someone going to send me a half-baked product that doesn't do half of the things it said so we can all release this video at the same time, but we can't really be critical of it because we're worried about not getting future support from them. And I'm like, right. Damn, that's not a great system that's going on right now.
And that's the thing too. Yeah, because things are hard to get and expensive. Like, clearly these people don't want to lose their hookup from getting free or discounted gear. So they're just going to say good stuff, you know what I mean? Or at the very least underplay the faults that they uncover with this stuff.
And there are people that are just getting into all of this that don't necessarily know that's a system that is driving some of these videos that they're seeing. Some 15-year-old who's getting into this and being like, I'm really excited because that guy that I liked is really excited about it. I was like, oh, well, that excitement is not genuine.
That's the thing. I fell for that this year.
I'm sorry, when I said 15-year-old, I meant...
We all do.
Usually I have a pretty good eye to see through the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, we've been in this for a while, but I was able to ignore most of the hype with the Polyand play. However, Ben Jordan putting out 2 massive videos, super polished, you know what I mean? Like all that, like all focused on the play, and like him, the way he sold it, I believed him. You know what I mean? For a while, like he was hyping it up as, IDM in a box and all this shit. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool,
Yeah.
But it's not.
And especially coming from him, I mean, he was a successful, talented IDM artist.
Sure, I respect Ben's opinion. Sure.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like a little sad that, like, I bought into what he was saying because I respect him and I like him as, a person and an artist. But yeah, clearly, he's always kind of shilled for poly-end stuff. This wasn't going to be any different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this was a carefully marketed, production that he did across the span of 2 videos, and I kind of bought into it, but and maybe for some people it is IDM in a box, I guess. Maybe his words, aren't, I'm not saying he lied. I'm just saying,
right.
I heard what I wanted to hear, out of what he was saying. And I didn't give it enough judgment before dropping $900 on a machine that was kind of, a flop for me. But
right.
Yeah, I think you said it well, and somebody else mentioned it in the same term as it's kind of like a paint by numbers box, for that perspective. And it's like, once I heard that, I was like, oh, that really kind of hit. I'm like, I see what they did there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's what I would ever want, but they got close, but not quite.
Yeah, overall, it's just like the shilling right now is kind of insane. We can't even pinpoint one person. I don't think I would anyways. You know what I mean? I don't want to call people out. Like, I think most people, especially our listeners, are smart enough to see who's shilling, who's being a hackiest hack. You know what I mean? They don't need us to name drop, but it's just bad overall right now.
Right.
There's very few sources that I will bother to watch anymore because, like, this year has made me numb to the amount of shilling and half-assed reviews.
I mean, I still put it out there, Ben DivKid. I do take what they present with it holds a lot more water because I don't feel like I'm being sold a product. I feel like I'm just watching someone who's very enthusiastic and knows what they're doing put something through its paces. I don't know. I wouldn't say that's end of list, but the list isn't much longer than that.
I was just going to say the same. Like, I think I'll typically watch like Ben Jordan's stuff just to see what he's talking about. And I'll watch DivKid's, technical overviews of things. I don't really watch DivKid's videos to sell me on a product. I'll usually watch videos with stuff that I'm already interested in that he's doing. I'm like, cool, I'm going to get a technical overview. Yep. He's going to paint a wide brush showing many ways this product can be used,
he's
or
putting
this
it through its
module,
paces,
right.
And it is a little bit more like letting the device that he's reviewing do the talking.
Yeah, so I guess it's more productive for us to say who we think is not the hackiest of hacks.
Yeah.
Another one I put out, and this is a little bit weird because it's not directly synthesizer, and it's Emily Harpist. They do a lot of pedal reviews, and the reason I really was sort of glommed onto it, A, I just like the way harps sound, and B, they're very they're a charming personality, but also they're not just playing Smoke on the Water through a guitar pedal and telling me how oaky the timbre is.
Yeah.
Like, finding anything for pedals that isn't just someone running a fancy guitar through it and playing the same 3 classic rock songs was very tedious, and just someone doing something different, like running, a harp through a pedal, it turns out is wildly more informative than hearing a guitar go through it.
I always will go to, loop ups and skip to the pros and cons and just see what feedback he has. But other than that, I don't pay specific attention to anybody. Really.
Even them, I feel like he's been going a little soft on certain things. Or he'll get stuff and just point out, like, this firmware is a beta firmware or whatever, so like these options might not be in there. It's like, okay, but a lot of times it seems like those features never come anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I like Loop Hop, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of, at least these days, this year, not so much reviewing stuff that he cares about, but just reviewing whatever the hell free shit's getting sent his way. You know what I mean? And so, like, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And I feel like that right there might answer the worst influencer trend of 2022. It seems like standards have fucking dropped this year.
Yeah.
Pretty high, or pretty low, I should say. And people are just, doing whatever to get free stuff.
Or afraid to fuck up the flow of free stuff, which is kind of Well, then you offer like very little utility to the
Exactly.
community.
Scared to get fired by Electron or something.
Yeah.
For instance, yeah. I mean, at that point, if everyone's just towing a company line, you just need one person to do it. They put out the video that everyone's going to make and the script they're going to read. We don't need 5, 10,
That's the point.
15 influencers doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, at this point, it's like, why even bother watching different ones if they're all going to be doing the same thing with the same gear, reading the same more or less script, you know, and not really putting things through its paces. Just being like, you know, everything all year. It was just like, oh, wow, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like 10 reasons why you need this in your setup. And like, you know what I mean? Shit like that. And it's just like everything that came out was like the next thing that you needed to get. And it's just like, really? I don't know about that.
And with no more information than what's on the product page.
Right.
Yeah, which is, I think, funny because it kind of results in some like blowback towards us because I'll hear people be like, oh, you guys trash stuff. And I'm like, it's not like, I don't think so. You know, I think we are trying to be honest about the things that we come across.
We form opinions, and sometimes it's not the best opinion about the thing.
Well, I mean, when you look at a landscape where everyone is just so saccharine and positive and everything's the greatest thing ever, for someone to even deviate from that, even a little by going, oh, it wasn't that great, it sounds like trashing. And
the poly and play marketing barrage is what kind of brought that to my attention. And then I kind of like didn't think too much of it until the Perkins started making its rounds. And like, holy fuck, I think everyone who even like can even be slightly qualified as an influencer did what they could to get a free fucking Perkins. Because so many videos like all at once after like radio silence for months, just all of a sudden, bam, everyone had all these fucking Perkins videos and everyone's talking about how it's the best thing ever. And it's like, I'm interested in it.
Yeah,
I would like a Perkins, but it's a $2,000 fucking drum machine with only 4 voices, you know? So like, I want to see people that are actually putting it through its paces and speaking about its weaknesses. And, you know, I had to do a lot of research to pull up what some of what I consider weaknesses to be because no one else was talking about it, you know? And I'm like, and I watched like every video and I'm like, that information just really wasn't brought to the surface or focused on much. You know, everyone just wants to focus on, you know, the bells and whistles.
Right.
And tell you why you need to spend $2,000 on a drum machine. Yeah. It's like, So yeah, I think that's the worst trend of 2022.
No, I agree.
We've seen a lowering of standards is what I would say.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We need real journalists like us
yeah.
out there in the streets.
So like
bringing you the real news.
If everybody kind of like stepped up their level of just like fair criticism, what are they going to, are people going to stop giving free gear out to everybody?
It's
like
the one person who doesn't do that though is going to be that one influencer that does start getting it. No one wants to be the person left out.
Yeah.
Basically if everyone agreed en masse, we're going to be more critical and everyone moved up, nothing changes. But if that one person doesn't and it's just going to shill, it's almost like a union vote. Like if we all vote union, we're going to be very more powerful. Our collective bargaining is going to increase. But just
a ball of of modular shills.
All right, so I guess there's more categories. Oh, there was one I know that was best user interface or best or worst interface.
Yeah, worst.
I'll start.
Feel free
Because I've got a controversial hot take on this.
Ooh.
I don't have an answer to this. This is another Patreon suggestion, I think. I was talking to my partner before this. I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know the answer to this. And we started talking about just, you know, not just synthesizer interfaces, but, you know, my interaction with technology and interfaces in general. And we came to the conclusion that I'm malleable and kind of a pushover, and I will trudge through any shitty interface. And so, like, the reason I can't pick one is because I'm like, well, that's probably not that good, but I figured out how to use it anyway, and I'm fine with it. So that was a long way for me to say I'm going to abstain from this one because everything's fine.
That's fine. I was actually going to say something similar, but I am far from someone that trudges through interfaces. Like,
same here.
Like, yeah, I don't like menu diving at all. You know what I mean? I suffer from option paralysis quite easily. You know, like I like to keep things simple. And I was going to say something along similar lines there, like where I don't have one to pick for that category. Like for once, I think in the last decade, maybe more, I did a good job of not buying anything that I hated the interface with.
Nice.
Yeah.
I kind of did a great job, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for like, buying things that I could tell I would probably jive with interface wise. And
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Like, I didn't get anything complicated this year, like sequencers or anything that had like a deep menu system. Like I just kind of knew I wasn't in that vibe, and I just kind of avoided it. And it's worked out good.
Nice. Now, I realize you've patted yourself on the back, and we were about to deviate and go straight to Nick, but I do want to stop and say, was there anything that you were researching over the last year where you were like, oh shit, I want that, but you opted out of getting it because you realized the interface was going to give you fits?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head.
Do we want to go to Nick?
Yeah.
What you think about this?
Yeah, because
Nick, I'll think about that one.
It's funny because I'm similar to Greg. I'm like more like gonna reject things. I'm looking at my sold items in Reverb right now.
I
realized that like most of them are like I could go through like IO Labs Flux, great idea, absolute least favorite interface I think I've run into in a while. Oxy 1, similar. Roland MC707, terrible interface for the most part. It's a kind of a list of things that I got sick of putting up with. TR09, terrible interface. Yeah, very similar. Like I don't have the ability to put up with a lot of stuff like that I just don't like. Scott's Kermit Mark III, hated it. It just way too many hidden things. And the more I have in the past year made my modular simpler and gotten like Squid Sample, good interface, but another thing of like complexity and something I could get lost making a drum kit. The more I like flatten things out, the much happier I am with my modular, and getting like complex interfaces that are hard to remember or things with like lots of modes. Getting those out helps a lot. I'm getting better with mutable stages now, but I don't use like, there's still a lot of modiness to it and like things it can do that for me is like not what I want to do all the time. Whereas I think mutable tides is like the opposite, very simple to know like where you're at, configure it and things like that. Beads also a little more complicated and like kind of you got to remember some things that can be a little annoying.
But at the, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the beginning of the episode, you said you got a second ornament in crime. So how are you driving with that? Because that is multimodal and
great question. I think I picked that up, still remembered how to use it, thought it was easy to navigate around, even remembered some of the hotkeys to like save state or to get back to things. So ornament and crime for the most part so far, pretty straightforward, especially since I'm like, I'm going to leave this in Quantumane pretty much 99% of the time. It's just a quantizer for me that I didn't have.
Gotcha. So Greg, back to you. You look like you're chewing on this.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything that like I really wanted but opted not to buy because of the interface. I think I think it's just kind of like a reflex now.
Right.
Where like if I look at something and I see a bunch of fucking menus and menu diving and key combos and stuff, I just automatically write it off as not for me at this point. Because I just don't have that type of attention span right now. Like, especially when I'm like halfway through an album, like I am kind of like currently.
Yeah.
Trying to introduce something like that while you're in the middle, it's just, you can just fuck up your flow so much, So it's just like, right now I've just been doing a good job of avoiding things with shitty interfaces, just things that appeal to me with, like knob per function.
Right.
Things of like that, no menu or very little menu diving involved. Like that has been my go-to throughout the year, and I think I'm gonna be sticking with it for now.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what other categories did I've wrote my stuff on a piece of paper, but I know that there was a far more technical presentation of this list.
Gear that 2022 made you regret selling the most.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. Actually, I had nothing in that category. I couldn't really think of anything that I regretted getting rid of.
Nothing that you got back?
Oh yeah, I guess I did count the Octatrack. I got that back. Ornament and Crime.
Yeah. I was going to say Zadar for me. Like at the start of 2022, I kind of decided I wasn't into Zadar as much anymore, and I kind of didn't like the interface, and I sold it. And then like as time progressed, I found myself missing it more and more. And I got it back just a couple weeks ago, and I'm like in love with it all over again. I'm like, why did I ever sell this? I don't know what. Like, yeah, I'm really digging on it. So yeah, I don't know if anything else would fall into that category. I don't think so. I think probably just Zadar. Yeah, I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I got another dark matter Bastel because there was a good sale on it too, and I kind of missed it. So that's another one that I got back, and I only sold that like within the year.
I didn't even know you sold it.
Yeah, I was one of those ones where I'm like, I don't use this. I need room.
Yeah,
I kind of got over my trying to fit everything in. So I'll just swap stuff out now.
Yeah.
I don't care as much.
I do have more. What the hell am I thinking? I just bought back like multiple WMD stuff.
Yeah.
That I did sell.
Same.
Well, I guess I sold most of that last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, mainly because of the sale, and because I was missing some of this stuff over the year. I guess 2 months ago or something like that, I got back 2 Trash Masters, two muscle compressors. And I'm loving them to death, and I don't know why the fuck I ever sold them.
Right.
But yeah, just the way 2022 has shaped up, it made me realize like, that I missed those, and it would probably be very hard to get in the future. So I might as well get them back now.
Right.
You know what I mean, and hang on to them this time.
Those were WMD Digital VCA. I got the 4 HP one, which they'd sold out at the store, but then I found like a really cheap one on Reverb, and that's like, I shouldn't have sold that in the first place. It's so useful if you just don't want envelopes to click for something, or if you want bass to like not ever pop or click like that. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's funny because like there's multiple examples that both of you have given that like Zadar and Dark Matter were like, even when I wasn't using them, I was like, I mean, I could get rid of them, but like, I know I'm going to want this back. Like Dark Matter, even if it's not in every batch, but when I go and I reach for it, oh, I'm so fucking glad it's there.
I just went through this phase like at the beginning of the year where like if there wasn't something that was getting a lot of use out of me, I would rather have had that funds and that space dedicated to something else or something new.
We were both in that mode.
Yeah. But like due to like how the market has been shaping up and things like that now, like, I clearly can't do that as much anymore. Like I'm just going to start doing what you do. Like if I'm not using something all the time, fine, I can unrack it and set it aside for the moment. And in a couple months, if I get the hankering to use it again, there it is. And I just plug it back in.
And there is a threshold. If something's sitting there in the box for like a year, all right, I'm not like a hoarder. Sure. I can recognize our time together is done. Yeah. But if it's like I haven't used it for a couple of weeks, I gotta slow my roll.
I did something which kind of helped me on that. I got like online like 30 anti-static bags, and I just have 2 shoe boxes. And if there's a module that's like out of the mix, I like pop it in the anti-static bag, sit it in the shoe box, and then like I have a list of it, and I'm like, oh, like a lot of them, like I don't want to sell somebody the Neutron Orgone I made like 10 years ago when we both made those that I like don't use because it's like not worth much money. It's got like some issues, and there's just a bunch of stuff like that. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll use it again one day. Like there's stuff like that I'm not going to get rid of. Like I've sold stuff that I made as a kit because I knew it was like, I'm like, oh, this is functioning like pretty much perfectly. But for the most part, I'll kind of shy away from it, especially if there's even like a little issue.
Right. And also if it's only in a kit, fuck, I don't want to make this thing again.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a very complicated answer. Like we all had there was no like definitive.
Think on it for a second.
Yeah.
Hopes and predictions for
2023. Say, we're gonna look to the future now.
We already went through mine, which was the LZX and what it's going to do to video stuff. I mean, hopes. No more chip shortages. No more companies going out of business. People can do this for a living. Capitalism fails. In a techno utopia takes over and
goddamn commie.
Yeah, so that's my hope. Prediction is the opposite of that. My prediction is that none of that's going to come true.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Again, like, there's not a whole lot that has been announced that I'm like really hyped for and feel like I need. Yeah. I'm still keeping a little space in my rack for industrial music, electronics, Volkmeyer's Inferno. But that's not a new hype. Like I've been hyped on that for years now. Just patiently waiting for Scott to get it right and hopefully get the components to make it happen. And he says it's supposed to probably springtime 2023. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's on the horizon. If that is still a legit time frame. And what else? Oh, I hope British Noise Electronics doesn't go under.
Yeah.
Seems like they might be. I really hope not. I would love to see what Ansem creates next, or at the very least be able to keep producing his current lineup. Love his stuff. It's been a game changer for me this year. So yeah, like aside from that, I just feel like there hasn't been many announcements that I am like gassed up for on the horizon.
Yeah.
It's more like I just want to see the manufacturers that I enjoy not fold.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The lack of announcements is probably a reflection of the state of the industry right now. Like,
Yeah. I'm kind of similar. Like, I hope all these companies can keep going, obviously. But I will probably not be the one helping out much in the next year. And like, I'm always curious to see how that pans out. I know I've said that before, like, oh, I'm not going to buy much this year. I think I said that last year. And I got like way more like shit cycled through than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm super content. I've said that before too. But there's nothing like I'm looking forward to. Like I've kind of really figured out what I'm doing in some ways, like not sampling and shit, kind of lower complexity modules. There are no more cases with room. Like there's no more room, and I don't have much more money to put towards this.
I am sort of, and I know I've said this as well in the past and then promptly violated. I think I am at capacity for cases. For space and even just the room that I work in. Like if I need to get something else is going. And that's going to be a hard decision to make. But I don't see, for lack of a better word, my studio growing.
Yeah.
I only have so much room in my brain to organize what I want to do and how I use it.
Yes.
I don't want a big, huge, giant room full of shit and then become overwhelmed. And I don't think I'm there, but I'm not there. You know,
that's where I'm at. Yeah, the cognitive, like being able to deal with it, like reducing some of those complex modules, like give me less guilt because I feel bad if I don't use something that's sitting there too. I feel like, oh, what's wrong with you that you're not using this thing? And I'm like, wait, focus on finishing what you're trying to do and then worry about the tools later. And I was just so flipped with that for a while.
Yeah. I am curious to see what IntelliGel's still cooking up.
Yeah. What's Cascadia? We don't know.
It's still never announced.
Mm-mm.
Maybe it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I was curious.
Yeah, there hasn't even been a lot of those type of teasers.
IntelliGel stuff in general has been all out of stock and not being restocked a lot lately. And I'm like, they've been really quiet. And I'm like, fuck, don't be another company that's about to fold. Like,
that would be huge.
That would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, WMD is still like fucking me up. The fact that they're going, like I've relied on them for a good while. Same with Mutable. Really bums me out that they're ceasing all production now.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, I think I still have more Mutable stuff than anything. Second up would be WMD and then probably IntelliGel.
I have a secret hope that Emily from Mutable stops production, but then like starts working with someone else, like continues to design things and just has someone else make them. Or like Emily's involvement in doing stuff, I hope continues, even if it isn't with Mutable.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know if that's the case. I don't have any kind of inside track. That's my secret hope. Again, a hope for this year is that, like the sort of Platts out of the blue firmware, they were, obviously off working on this. What are they working on right now?
Yeah.
Some surprise thing in May or late next year, and it isn't Mutable. It's something else. I hope that's what happens.
Yeah. I'll make a bold prediction that I hope isn't necessarily true, but I bet that Make Noise will go under.
Really?
Hope it's not true.
Yeah.
How many maths can one produce before the market's saturated?
Yeah. And I feel like...
Don't want it to happen.
Right.
WMD fell, though.
Yeah.
Wait, has Make Noise been making a lot of videos? I feel like that's dried up. I didn't even really put it together, but for a while
they were for a moment.
They were making like a lot of videos,
like how to use Strega.
Yeah, and some of them were like
30th
guest star
time.
Yeah.
and like guest stars showing up, and they were all really well produced and all that. It occurred to me that just as you said, I'm like, been a while since I've seen one of those.
Yeah. How many OCOS can they sell? Like, I don't know. Maybe like I don't know shit. Maybe they're doing just fucking great and they're
Right.
laughing and hearing this if they listen to it.
Right.
Hope so. But something, I don't know. Just think a few more people will kind of be out of the mix.
Yeah. I will say I've been seeing more manufacturers popping up in VCV.
Yeah.
A lot of new hardware clones, which I'm totally cool with. ALM
Yeah.
has
ALM's
been
ton of
doing a
stuff
few.
now.
Yeah, even Dopefer, the Dopefer Wasp filter is now ported into VCV. And I think that's what we discussed last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Is that, maybe people who have good concepts and don't want to completely fold, but don't have the components or the finances to release a module could adapt to, software renditions of their ideas. I'm not saying VCV Rack is the end all be all. There's plenty of options out there to, port your code to, but
Yeah.
VCV has been growing steadily over the last year. Like, I was just getting into VCV 2 last year during this wrap-up episode. Like, they had just announced 2.0, if I recall. And 2.0 has grown tremendously over the last year, and a lot of innovation going on within it from third-party people and just straight-up VCV modules.
Right.
Like just last week, they released 2 new modules, a reverb module and a convolution reverb module.
I saw that.
And they're nice.
Oh, cool.
I like them a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
And one thing that I will definitely give props to VCV designers for is that they, like I said last time, they keep the spirit of modular alive with their designs. Like, they're not like, well, hey, this is software, so we can load it with 100 fucking options on this panel. Like, they're not doing that. They're keeping it to the point. Modules are meant to be, a more focused approach. It's like knob per function. There's not much buried underneath it.
We have the option for a drop down. Let's do drop downs.
Oh God.
But the temptation to do that, I imagine, is very high.
And some people do on the third party stuff, but it seems like for the most part, VCV is keeping it real. And so I'm glad that they've released a bunch of effects over the last couple months that were like, they sound good. They're not, it doesn't give me option paralysis when I look at the panel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like they're easy to use. They serve the purpose, and I like it a lot. My hybrid setup has been giving me more productivity than anything else has in a while. So
nice.
Yeah.
I will say too, it was cool to see the System 80 Mark II modules were announced a couple days ago.
Were they?
Yeah,
I missed it.
There's a new oscillator, modulator, and then the 810 are all Mark II, and they should be out like sometime middle of next year.
Cool.
So
Nice.
rad to see them keeping going. Again, like Jeff was super helpful when my 810 needed to be fixed. And now I can say that they also were super solid and sent me back a prototype of the Mark II of the 810. And so I have 2 of them now.
Oh, yeah.
Which is amazing having dual oscillators. The 810 has some good features, like super generous, super helpful with getting it fixed and everything. Paid for like shipping halfway. All I had to do was pay to get it shipped there. And they were really transparent, like, hey, like we found the issue. Yeah, this potentiometer or trim pot's broken. Like we're gonna burn it in for a week. Did everything they said they would.
Nice.
System 80 rules. Yeah, really, really happy with them. And the shit sounds like could have been one of my favorite sound sources for sure. But it's been my favorite, one of them for a couple years now.
Nice.
Well, by Greg's rule, where time doesn't fucking matter because it's a flat circle, you could have included it.
That's true. It is a flat
I'm just
circle.
saying we can make our own rules, and you can just whatever filter, whenever it was made, whenever you got it, can be in a best of 2022 list.
Everything
Bullshit,
we've done,
Greg.
Dave, we'll do again and again and again.
I feel like you should have cracked a beer at the end of that. Yeah. Hold on, take a break. I'd chew some ice, Greg. What?
It's like nails on chalkboard to me, dude. I can't.
I did not know that about you, Greg.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It makes me, literally sends a chill up my spine when people chew on ice. I can just feel it like hurting and freezing my teeth, and it just like sends this shiver up my spine. It's weird.
I don't think it's supposed to hurt your teeth.
I remember in high school there was this kid who maintained that you could grow back brain cells because something happens when you chew on ice, and I'll never forget that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like something in there is gonna like make fucking neurons
Silicon Valley
appear.
nootropic secret right there.
Yeah.
Chewing on ice.
The real alpha brain. Chewing on some fucking ice.